Back again. What's up, everybody? How y'all doing? Oh, Lord. Oh, my goodness. Mota, I can't hear you. You're on mute. Edsel, stay on mute.
I'm confused as to what kind of grand entrance was that? Was that like
I'm
gonna uncover the Knicks because they're just not the greatest disappointment in the history of basketball.
Mota, the greatest. In all of basketball. Welcome everybody. Good night and good evening. Welcome to the Confessions Podcast. Brought to you by Lighthouse Media Studios in the Northeastern Conference of Seventh-day Adventists. I am one of your hosts today, Pastor Duddley Francois. I'm here with my Confessions family, and we are here again to give you another episode. Hopefully it'll be good for you. It'll be edifying for you, despite the regalia that is being put on display.
You know.
From both of you, though. I mean, Duddley, I'm a Celtics fan too, but what are you doing? Like, it's like
I put it on because he put it on.
Edsel. No.
You didn't see me put it on first. You went by yourself.
Ingrid knows. Ingrid knows. I had another sweater on.
Who changed first?
Who? Ingrid. Okay, settle it, Ingrid. Ingrid, make sure who said they're going to change the shirt.
Just speak the truth.
Say it.
Look, Ingrid.
Oh, and look.
Is Ingrid fake?
He's saved by the Wi-Fi. He's saved by the Wi-Fi. You know, Ingrid knows.
It's gracious.
You know what? I don't understand. I don't understand how a kid who was born and raised in Queens, New York, becomes a Celtics fan. Explain that one to me, please.
Technically, I was born in Orange, New Jersey. So I mean, but I did come in, as a New Yorker, when I was 1 year old. So yeah,
1 year old.
It is what it is.
1 year old.
Okay, I'm back.
1 year.
Ingrid, who changed first? Who changed
when I was 1 year old?
We changed at the same time.
Yes. Let me tell you what happened, Michelle. Right? They both turned off their cameras and refused to come back on until they could both see what the other person was wearing. But I'm not mad at Edsel because I have my t-shirt too.
There we go. We're standing on the right side. You see, everybody watching, if you look on your screen, this is a prophetic word. You're going to see who's standing on the right side, who's standing on the Lord.
I'm sorry. I got something Something happened.
Don't do me like that. Don't do me like that. You see who's on the right side? Who's on the Lord side over here? You see the abuse of power.
Today we're about fighting fair. On 1,000. You guys are not fighting fair. Hey, we're talking about fighting fair today.
Well, I mean, it's a good segue into what we're talking about tonight. But I'm just saying, I can't disagree with.
It seems like a really toxic volatile relationship right now.
Let's go.
I refuse. I see comments talking about "Let's go Knicks." I refuse to put that on.
Put it in the chat, Duddley. That's how we do it. Don't do that.
And you know who this, I'm almost sure I know who's behind it. Because see, Northeastern Conference is saying it, but it's not Northeastern Conference that's saying it. Yeah. I know exactly who's saying it. Who has access on the back end? Who's saying this?
Oh yeah,
it is what it is. And look at this guy, preacher.
Yeah.
You know what? Anyway.
Well, the Bible says test the prophet. So after the season, we'll know.
Mercy.
We gonna see.
We gonna see. Okay, thank you, Ingrid. Thank you very much. All right. Well, without wasting any more of your time that we've already have done, we'll see how the night ends how it started. But for today, we are coming to you today with which I feel is going to be a real spicy conversation. It somehow found its way out of the last 2 episodes that we've done. So I would like to say it's sort of a spin-off over the last part 1 and part 2 of the last time we were together. But I feel like this can go in so many ways. I'm gonna leave this comment up while I say this. In so many ways. And so I'm sorry. Okay. So And I'm excited about it. I'm excited about the fighting fair topic. Now, truth be told, this is, I think, is going to allow us to see how arguments can be seen and handled in various different ways, not only in romantic relationships, but in relationships in general, and how in different facets, in different forms of how you relate and how you communicate to different people. So I'm really looking forward to this conversation. E, this is your topic. So I want you to lead so much and kind of shape us into this and kind of help us understand, where was your mind at when you thought about this topic, and kind of lead us into where you want to go with it.
Well, great question. I think that when we were discussing all of the stuff regarding relationships and divorce and breakups, one of the things I saw in the comments were questions about how to conduct relationship. And I feared that there might have been people who were watching kind of hoping for a way to avoid that path. And I think that conflict is one of the ways that if we learn how to do that right, we can hopefully mitigate or avoid unnecessary divorce. So, I was just hearing some of the stories. I'm like, man, I know that some of these things are really, really popular, that they're happening. They're common, I should say, that they're happening in many households and in many relationships. So we said, you know what, let's talk about fighting fair, not just in relationships though, but also in other contexts. Because I think that how we learn to fight growing up and how we learn to fight in our relationships shows up at work, it shows up at church, it shows up so many other places. So I guess the question I'll ask is this: what have you guys learned about fighting? What kind of fighter would people say you are? I think everybody just directed their attention to the faces that just went, like you don't want to know. But yeah, what kind of fighter would you say you are? Or what kind of fighter would the people who have loved you, what kind of fighter would they say you are? Yeah.
I'm gonna take my camera off. Y'all have a good night. Bye. I can't engage in this conversation. There might be police officers that bust through that door and arrest me for emotional damage. So emotional damage. I'm not even. Dudley, kick us off. Go ahead, boo boo.
I'll kick it off. How would my loved ones describe
your fighting style?
My fighting style?
Mm-hmm.
I would say, I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing, so let me just be vulnerable.
Oh, wow.
I'm done.
I'm very non-confrontational.
I'm done, Mota. Yo, I've never seen, is this what Shy Mota looks like? I've never seen Shy Mota before.
No. This is petty Mota. This is Mota. The table's on us. This is what this is. Right. This is the tables are turned.
Okay. All right.
No, yeah, I think I'm non-confrontational. I find myself trying my best to always look at the glass half full. I try my best not to engage, and for most of my life, I've found that has been detrimental. I've been in a constant mode of wanting to please people, and so I'm not a fighter. Even to my own detriment. I find that fighting is not good for me, and that we can talk about it a little bit. But I understand through therapy why that is.
I got you.
But I know that I'm not a fighter because I've seen fighting.
So you know what fighting turns into.
I know what fighting turns into.
I got you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I hear I am a very mean, dirty fighter, but I know why that has been, right? I feel like I take a lot, right? I take a lot, I absorb a lot. And when I finally get to the point where I stop absorbing, what comes out of me can be very nasty and dirty. And so I've had to learn over time to not absorb so much and really, speak on things when, I feel a certain way. I've started to take a lot more time to really process my thoughts, even though sometimes I hear my words are so very sharp and can be quite demeaning. So it's something that I'm working on. And some people would say like, oh, I wouldn't like, I don't think I'd ever see that side of you. But it's just because you haven't gotten close enough to me or hurt me enough for me to really care to fight with you. Because that's the other thing about me. If I don't really care that much, I'm not going to bother fight you. I'll just walk away from the situation and you'd probably never hear from me again.
I got you.
She said that all with a smile on her face.
I know, right?
Anybody who's going to be listening on Spotify after this, just know that she did that gracefully.
You would never expect, right? Nice Ingrid. You would never see that coming. For me, I grew up in a household with 3 siblings much older than me. So my oldest brother's 15 years older than me. My other brother's 12 years older than me. My sister's 9 years older than me. So there was no winning whenever I would fight. They were faster, bigger, stronger, smarter. There was no winning. And so whenever I would fight them, I didn't expect to win. And my only goal was to inflict as much pain as possible before the fight was over. That's me. So I don't fight. I'm not provoked to fighting very easily. But when I get pushed to that point, I'm not interested in winning even. I just want to inflict pain, as much pain as I can before.
This guy's the Joker.
That's because winning was never an option growing up. It was like, we just do this to hurt other people. That's it. I remember once my oldest brother, he was play fighting with me, and I managed to drop an elbow on his pinky toe, and it broke his pinky toe, and he was hobbling on a cane around New York for a good month, and I loved every minute of it. I was so happy because it was the only way I could get something done. So wow. Yeah. So that's me. That's me. The Lord constrains me. But
Mota said I respect it.
I respect him. I respect it.
Mota, you really not gonna tell us what kind of fighter your loved ones would describe you as? Oh wow, the posture got right. You saw the posture?
I'm looking.
I am so if there was a ring, right? I'm the one that knocks out the referee to go and do something illegal. Like, I'm gonna grab the chair and hit you with it, and then wake the referee up, count to 3, and I win the fight.
Right? Wow.
I don't hit below the belt. I don't hit below the belt. I am a killer. Like, you're not gonna get back up when I'm done. And I'm not talking about physical fighting, obviously. Although the one person that I did ever put hands on did not get up for a little bit after I, knocked her out. I was 15 though. And she was my cousin. But so I am the fighter, and and this might segue into the next part, right? I am going to be right at all costs. So I am going to hit you where I know it hurts for a fact. I'm going to hit you in that lowest low. And our relationship will probably be over by the time we're done fighting. But I will walk away sad, but knowing that I won. Mercy. And to me, that's enough of satisfaction. So mercy. I am a nice, nasty fighter, right? Because I'm nice. At first, I'm like, you don't want to do this. You don't want to do this. But once you go there with me, there will be no more with me alongside you after that. So
I hear you.
It's the worst kind, honestly. And it's something that I've had to work a lot in therapy about.
Mota, you have a Latinx background.
Yes,
and
I'm a Latina.
I'm just wondering, like, is there any truth to the stereotype that?
No, stop it.
No,
I'm
just wondering.
No, I'm just saying. I will not. I have never had to. I will admit this.
Take a Louis there, slug of the both headlines.
Okay, listen. I'm gonna be 100. I'm gonna be 100. Like, I don't know why I'm gonna say this, but I'm gonna say this because I'm gonna try to free somebody today.
Come on.
My anger is like Ingrid's, right? Like I used to let it bottle up. Like I would let you do, and 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 it builds and it builds and it builds and it builds. And once it gets to the point of explosion, you should run, because it's not just going to manifest itself emotionally, it will come out physically. Like I will grab something, whatever, and it's gonna go straight at you, because it's just, that's how angry I used to get. I got so angry once that I dropped the bookshelf on a person. That's actually how I knew my strength. Like I knew how strong I was. I legitimately and it was calm. I was calm. And that's the thing about me. I'm not the girl that's going to be in your face like, you gotta, let me just go Spanish real quick, right? Because Spanish girls, they're like, yo te voy a cortar a ti, a tu vecino y a todo el mundazo, porque conmigo tú me jugas así. Like, it's like, right? I don't get there. I don't ever get there.
I transported back to Greater New York Conference. I
never get there. But where I do get is like absolute calmness. And that's the worst. Because
that's the
when it goes from to just, it's like, you should run.
That's lethal.
And a person, and to be fair, this individual had put their hands on me a couple of times. I told you guys that I was in an abusive relationship before. He had done this a lot of times, and I was just sick of it. So I just stood next to the bookshelf and I said, if you keep yelling at me, I'm going to drop this bookshelf on you. And he was like, and I was like, if you keep yelling at me, I'm going to drop this. I mean, I gave him fair warning, And then finally I just kind of went like this behind my 5-layered, full of books, bookshelf, like the one that Edsel has behind him, with one hand, grabbed it and just, and they all fell. The worst part is that I went over, put the bookshelf back, put the books back on the shelf while he was on the floor covering the books. And then I walked out. I stepped over him and walked out.
So you picked up the books, but not the person.
Yeah, the books were more valuable.
The books, though, you know what I mean?
We ain't perfect, y'all. We ain't perfect. We are works in progress. Amen.
Mercy.
That was years ago. I would never do that again. But it was just one of those things where, for me, it was just such a necessity to be right, and it didn't matter if I was left bloody and bleeding on the floor. I was right.
Yeah.
But I lost every time. And that was the part that I could not comprehend at the time. That is the reason why now I would never consort to violence. Right. Because I know that that's never going to win,
Yeah. And that brings us to our tagline, where it says, like, fighting fair, how winning battles loses wars, right? So there's this clip because, like, I think fighting styles are very, I think that the way a lot of couples fight, it's kind of universal, because we grew up seeing so many things that we just kind of emulate what we think works. So I don't know if you guys have ever seen the movie The Breakup, but there's a scene from the movie The Breakup that I think captures what a lot of couples do in one form or fashion, or one form of fashion. So we have this clip for you.
So I don't know if it's as simple as right and wrong, but what I will say is, obviously, having the luxury of seeing this clip before the episode, I processed it a little bit, and what I found is that fighting can be extremely easy when someone doesn't practice the art of empathy. And we're not talking sympathy. We're talking empathy.
Mm-hmm.
Sympathy is easy, relating to someone's pain because you've gone through it.
Mm-hmm.
Empathy is the ability to relate to somebody's circumstances or pain, even though you didn't go through it.
Mm-hmm.
And all I've been hearing from this clip are individuals who are not taking the time to look at something in another person's viewpoint. Now, granted, I feel like the communication was horrible. Like there weren't, whether the people weren't versed or practiced in being able to express themselves, it's like they were talking around their issue. And when you don't have the ability to tell anyone what your real problem is, when you find a reason to always dance around the issue without having the time to actually compartmentalize and think, okay, what's my real problem here? So I'm able to address it. It's extremely difficult. And then fighting becomes easier, or the response to fighting becomes easier because you're just black and your emotions now become the leading process of it. So empathy is extremely important in this. The ability to walk in somebody's shoes, but also, and I say this a lot of times to a lot of people that I counsel, I know the word of God says, don't go to sleep on your wrath, right? Don't go to sleep angry. But the context behind that in Ephesians 4 is Paul speaking to a people, helping them to realize that I don't want you to have malice towards your brother and your sister. And so you going to sleep on your wrath is in the context of you harboring a dislike towards your neighbor. Don't do that. But in the process of communication, as a person who's been married for almost a decade, I'll tell you, sometimes it was better for me to go to sleep. But it wasn't because it was not out of malice. Actually, it was out of the benefit. Yo, babe, you know what? For the sake of not having a conversation where I'm speaking to you in a way that I don't want to, or in a way that might disrespect the integrity I have to you and to this relationship, I just need some time. And I think I'll be better to speak about what actually is my problem after I get a night's sleep. And so sometimes you need the time.
Yo, Edson.
Sometimes you need, for me, sometimes you need the time. Do you know? Okay, yeah, you know, I was Edison's best man in his wedding. Anyway,
really?
Yes. Yeah, anyway, so sometimes you need the time because the time gives you the perspective. The time allows you to ask yourself the question: okay, what am I really upset at? Because it wasn't the ballet, it wasn't the dishes. It was something deeper than that we can start to talk to in a second.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't think either of them were right. And I'll tell you why. I'm a very practical person in relationships. I do not believe in having my partner having to guess what I want. I'm very clear on my expectations. But I find that sometimes, even when you're clear on your expectations, if someone can't meet them, it creates frustration, right? So there were some aspects where, she said, help me with the dishes. If I ask you to help me with the dishes, I don't really care how much you want to do it. If you get up and help, that's good enough for me. I'm going to tell you, I like flowers. I don't care that they die after a few days. I want you to buy me them. That's just the kind of person that I am. And so I feel like in this clip, there were just too many instances of, like Duddley said, speaking around issues, not being clear and direct, not being honest, which, the Bible talks about when you're engaging with someone else, you just need to be honest. And I feel like too many times in relationships, we expect the person to kind of know what we want and know what we expect, and then get upset when they can't live up to that. I feel like I get so angry because I'm very clear on what I want. Like I'll say, dear, I want you to take out the garbage. I don't want to have to do that. And when I see garbage in the house, that's a problem because I made it very clear that that's an expectation that I have.
Mm-hmm.
And it's either you're going to say, well, you know what, I disagree. But if you agree to it and then you don't do it, then we're going to have an issue.
Now, I hear you. I appreciate you for being so clear.
Mm-hmm.
But can we admit that a lot of women do what she did, where she
Absolutely.
said, I don't like flowers, and then she expects flowers?
Yes.
Like that, I mean, look.
Listen, I might get some heat, but I do feel like a lot of women do that. And I'm not that woman. Okay. Like I can't. It's too much work to be.
You know what it is? It's the Disney myth that like, oh, he just knew. Like, oh, he's just gonna know. Like, and they see it on the movies, and it's like, oh, I'm expecting that. And there's this other myth underneath it that says, if I have to ask for it, then it doesn't mean as much. And that thing, it causes people who might have to experience 10 seconds of discomfort in asking for something. Mm-hmm. They now experience weeks, months, even years of frustration because they're not asking for what they really want.
But then can you also admit, though, that because I guess men are so fixed on this mindset that that's how women are, when they meet a woman that's very direct, they don't believe the directness of that woman.
That's real.
Absolutely.
That's real. That's real. Because we're looking over our shoulders. We want to see like, hey,
where's the cat? Where's the cat?
Let me tell you, if I'm like, yo, this is what it is. This is what it is.
No. I mean, so I'm gonna call her Rachel because that's her friends.
Yeah. That's all I know her as.
So when Rachel's speaking toward the things in which she wants, more specifically in regards to the flowers. Again, the reason why she brought up flowers, it's not flowers because obviously she contradicted herself. Her want is a want. Whatever that want is, it could have been. I don't want to disrespect her. I don't want to disrespect any woman here who is listening, etc. But I feel like if it was, I mean, especially up until that point, if it was a McDonald's Happy Meal, she would have appreciated it. Because there was just a lack of want that she desired. And so like anything that he could have done, should have done in her mind, she would have accepted. And so again, I feel like there's a lot there that can be communicated, but will not be communicated until a person is able to first truly identify exactly what my problem is.
Right.
So you understand what your problem is, no way to fix it. And then you'll find fighting to fix it.
Right.
And then it gets to the point where you begin to start to fight unfairly.
Yeah.
Because then you begin to start to fight to remedy the solution, and you realize that person is now fighting or using the same tactics that you are, trying to out-reason you in your unreasonableness, if that's a word. And then now it becomes, all right, well, you know what? You went low, so I'm going to go lower. You go low, I'm going to go low. And now you begin to start to forget what your problem is, because now your problem isn't your problem. Your problem is the fact that person went lower than you expected them to go.
Exactly.
Now you got to apologize twice if there's an apology that comes in the future.
Right. And the couple, they weren't talking about the same thing. So they were fighting, but they weren't having the same conversation. They were just talking at the same time.
Yeah, and the reason why is because remember when you just asked Ingrid, you said, can we be honest that, women sometimes they do that, right? They say one thing even though, can we also be honest too, when I'm looking, when the husband is speaking, he's speaking very, very generically.
Yeah.
He's not taking any time to think about the nuances of the circumstances.
Listen.
All he's thinking about is dishes.
Listen.
Okay, ballet. What,
lemons, right?
You know what I'm saying? Then all of a sudden, hold on. But I did take you out. Okay, so now you don't like the way I take you out? I don't do anything for you. Didn't I do something for you in the morning?
Right.
What exactly do you want? And then eventually it gets to the point where his fighting now becomes a lash back. You are attacking me on everything that I don't do. You telling me everything that I don't do, and you don't realize the things that I do. And now that becomes his issue. Now that becomes something. You see, stop. And now that becomes his fight that he's been internalizing. You know what I'm saying? That he's been keeping on the back burner, and now it's gotten to a point where it's like, you know what? If we gonna do this, then let's do this here, because now you're attacking who I am.
Right.
I'm not taking that.
Right. And here's something a lot of men do. A lot of men do this. A lot of people, but a lot of men do this. We intentionally do not listen for the deeper meaning, and we only have the fight on the surface level.
That's what men do.
We'll stick with, you wanted lemons, I gave you lemons. You asked me to wash the dishes. There's more being communicated. And when we are at work or we're at other places, we're able to pick up the subtext. But when it doesn't benefit us in the argument, we'll stay very literal, right? And we'll just keep it right there and say, no, this is what you said, when there is the ability to interpret deeper and understand better and respond better. But if responding that way means I'm wrong, then what often happens is that the person becomes a lawyer, they become a litigator, they become very literal, and then they just keep it right there just so that I can be right.
And it's a tactfulness, right? It is a wonderful art of fighting that men have mastered.
Yeah.
Because they've mastered the art of practicality.
Mm-hmm.
They've mastered the art of the ability to be able to say, well, if you cannot find fault in the efforts in which I've done, then that thus would conclude I've done nothing wrong.
Exactly.
You know, because if we're having a conversation on two different worlds, where you're talking emotionally and I'm talking rationally, not necessarily saying that what you're saying is irrational, but only in
I was about to,
for lack of a better term.
Careful.
You know, if I'm only speaking in the efforts that of plain vernacular, then it gets to the point where there's no way you're going to catch me,
right?
Because I'm not speaking in the same language that you're speaking, even though we're speaking English.
Exactly. And I'm choosing not to speak the language that you're speaking.
I'm choosing to do that, bro.
Because if I can hold you to the letter of the law, then I can be legalistic, I can be a Pharisee, and
what letter of the law? You don't get to decide what the law is. The problem with men is exactly this.
Into the chat.
Wait, because y'all just triggered me. Wait a minute. Back up. First of all, I'm going to quote our president, Dr. Abraham J. Jules, who says, I reserve the right to disagree with myself, which means that she may have not liked flowers that day, but she may have wanted flowers the next day. And that's okay. Like, we like, as human beings, to put people in boxes. Like, oh, she always likes to wear black. Or, oh, she always likes XYZ. And men do this because it's easier to create a single story of their relationship person than it is to actually grow with them every day.
How many stories are you supposed to have?
Not a singular one, because no one is the same every day.
Okay.
No one is the same every day. And then the other thing is this: you guys take offense to things that may not have anything to do with you, right? She may have been feeling ignored. I didn't say you, Edsel. I said you guys. It's a pluralation. It's a general statement, okay?
Finish, Mota.
Many men, they tend to take offense to things that have nothing to do with them. They tend to like do things that show that they have an inability to actually communicate what they're also interpreting your communication to be, right? So what happens is you're responding to the female from a perspective of, oh, this must be what she's saying, so I'm going to respond to this, which is what he was doing in the clip. He's thinking she's talking about this when she's talking about that. So what happens is there's a literal breakdown in communication. Yeah. And so, and you both miss each other because you're sitting there and you're like, are you not listening to me? Am I not speaking plain English to you as a woman? And the man is completely missing you. And it's really, you know, I don't like this whole, I don't buy into this men are from Mars, women are from Venus thing. I don't buy into the, oh, women are emotional, because I have been told by all of my exes that I don't have an emotional bone in my body. Okay. I've been told this. They're like, you are the man. You wear the pants in this relationship. And that's not true. It's not true. They may be a little more sensitive than I am, but
Lord of mercy.
But I'm not saying that removes your masculinity, because you are emotionally in tune. just like it doesn't remove my femininity, that I am more, a little bit more, my EQ and my IQ are different. And I think that it's a disservice that we do to one another when we don't realize that sometimes just having a conversation, instead of yelling over one another, instead of trying to get the last word in, instead of I'm going to be right and I'm going to be so loud in my rightness that I'm actually going to be wrong. Like, that's the stuff that breaks down relationships.
100%.
Because you want to win so bad that you're willing to make a point rather than keep a relationship. Right. And so then you look back, you know, and like the couple in the movie, you end up to a place where you get to a place of no return. Like, there's just no coming back from this. Exactly. It's just so bad that there's just.
And it's so crazy because if you watch the movie, they could have saved the relationship so many times. Yeah. There were so many opportunities. And it's crazy because, like, as a therapist, I see so many couples who I'm like, y'all have what it takes to make it. Yeah. But they never pull it together. They never use the tools. And what could have been salvaged and what could have been beautiful actually falls apart. It's really heartbreaking to watch. But one thing that I learned that really helped me, it changed my relationships. It changed everything for me. I learned that if I win, we lose. If I win the fight, we lose as a relationship. Wow. And once I learned that, I realized, like, the goal, like, I always thought that conflict was a bad thing. But what I've learned is that conflict is an opportunity to actually grow closer to your partner, because nobody is mad about something that's unimportant to them.
Right.
So that means if there's conflict there, that is a sign that something that is important to my partner is something I've overlooked, I've missed, I haven't learned yet, I don't understand. And if I can learn this thing, I can actually feel closer to them and they can feel closer to me as well. Yeah. But I think so many people have such negative context or negative connotations for conflict that we don't see it as an opportunity for exploration and discovery.
I think it's an approach towards conversation. It's an ability for us to constantly keep in check that when we're having a conversation, I found that there's difference between problem and an issue. So issues always happen, right? But issues become problems when you begin to point the finger not at the issue but at the person. Case in point, I'm walking into my house.
That's good.
My wife is in the home. I walk inside. I open up the back door. I come into the kitchen and I see the peanut butter left open on the counter. Now, I don't like the peanut butter being left open on the counter, so I'm heated that the peanut butter is being left over on the counter for whatever reason. Maybe I grew up in the hood, roaches, whatever, right? In the same space, I'm hearing my wife upstairs talking on the phone, right? Now, instantly, you can create a narrative to say, this lazy, good for nothing. Couldn't she just, if she just updated Jones on the phone, she couldn't just take 2 seconds.
And then that's when people use the language always or never.
You see what I'm saying? And so now you fall into this narrative where you've already created a narrative about the person, right? You already create a narrative about the person where where the circumstance in front of you is really the issue that the peanut butter is being left open. And so now when I'm having a conversation with my wife about it, my conversation is, why did you leave the peanut butter open?
You always leave it open.
You always leave the peanut butter open.
You never close it.
You never close that joint. You see what I'm saying? And so now my
I wish a man would talk to me like that. I'd be like,
over some peanut butter?
Listen. Flashback. Mercy.
But hear me. And so now my energy now is focused on the fact that she didn't close the peanut butter jar. Correct. Rather than the fact that the peanut butter being left open is my problem. And so we have to have the energy. And this is what I learned a lot. Remember what I talked about in the last couple of episodes about my blind spots? My blind spots being vulnerable. My blind spots when it comes to marriage came in the area of me being able to look at a situation and allow the conversation to be done where we're talking on the same side of the table. Whenever you're talking about an issue and you're on opposite sides of the table, you're not talking about the issue, you're talking about the person. Where if you're talking on the same, if you're talking on the same side, you say, babe, what happened with the peanut butter being left on the table? And then you'll get more context. No, you know what? My mom called me. It was an emergency. Dad got into the hospital. Yo, and I didn't even know that in the circumstances. I created my own narrative when I was in my own feelings, and I pointed the finger at her. But once we sit on the same side and we look at the issue together, we begin to start to realize, okay, well, I don't like the peanut butter being. I know, babe. I know you don't like the peanut butter being left open, but it was an emergency. All right, cool. So next time, not only does it solve the situation now, the issue now, but next time it builds up a storehouse of empathy later. Because next time when I see the peanut butter open, and now I'm not as triggered. You know why? Because we had a conversation about this. And I know that the peanut butter being left open is not out of malice.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I know there's a circumstance is the reason why this situation happened. And so I'm going to help in this situation by closing it for her.
Right.
Because we've had this conversation. Exactly. And the more time we are able to sit on the same side of the table, addressing certain things, it becomes a lot easier than allowing our natural impulses of fighting to be the thing that allows us to use to utilize in circumstances. There's a difference between problems and issues. Right. You will always have issues, but issues become problems when you direct the energy towards the person and not the circircumstance.
Mercy.
I'm gonna collect offering now. I know a couple. This is crazy, and I don't know if I would ever do this, but this worked for them. There was a couple. And I'm really close to this couple, and I asked them permission to tell this story. So she had learned that you win most fights when you're on your knees, right? Get your minds out of the gutter. Just listen to what I've got to say.
Listen, Mota, we never know what you said. We never know.
You never know.
We're going to get another teacher out of you.
Get your minds out of the gutter. So she says you win more when you're on your knees. And so what she used to do is that when her husband used to get upset and start to get really irritated, she would just get on her knees and she would be like, I apologize. You're not hearing me. And until you're ready to come down to my level, we can't have this conversation. And then the man would have to get on his knees. So then they're both on their knees. I mean, I need you to picture this in your mind, okay? Two grown people on their knees, looking at each other basically eye to eye, right? And they feel dumb, just like the argument. the argument just dissipates into absolute dumbness. Because at that point, we're really on our knees for this. Like, does the toothpaste being covered really require us to be right here, right now? And they're actually able. It's almost like, I don't know if you've ever seen that hug shirt that parents put their children in when they're having a fight. And you put them in the hug shirt, and they just can't, can't do anything until that's like the adult version of a hug shirt, right? You're both put into a position where you're both being humbled to actually have a real conversation. And one of the things that I have found that help in those moments of really, really angry moments is understanding how your partner understands anger. Because there are people that when they're in the middle of a heated discussion, they need to walk away. They know themselves enough to say, I need a minute, excuse me. But if you are like who I was before therapy and you have abandonment issues, watching the person that you love walk out of the room is not going to sit well with you. Because it's not about them at that point. It's about you. You feel like you're being abandoned.
Right.
So it feels like they're not trying to talk to you. It feels like they are minimizing your feelings. It feels like they are devaluing you and saying, I don't need you. I could just walk out on you at any point in time. So if you're married or in a relationship with someone who has severe trauma and abandonment issues, which unfortunately is a lot of people that are out there right now, and they have not dealt with it yet, that then when you're in the middle of an argument and you realize hey, I'm escalating, I need to walk away from you. And they're like, where are you going? That's where that comes from. So now you don't just have a problem. It's exactly what Duddley was saying. Now it's not the problem. The focus has shifted onto your behavior to the problem. So your behavior to the response of my response to the problem. So now we're gonna blow up. And the original problem never gets solved, by the way.
Right.
Because now it like metamorphs itself into 19 different issues. You always do this, and boom, that's another level, right? And it's like, don't talk to me like that. Bang, another level. And by the time you're done, there's very little relationship left at that moment. Because you just kind of drop bombs on each other to the point where you don't even want to talk to the person.
Right.
So that whole notion of getting on your knees, of humbling yourself, right? I feel like sometimes, and I know I speak for myself when I say sometimes it feels like you're always the one that has to do it. Sometimes you feel like, man, the last 6 fights we've had, I've had to be the one that has said, hey, honey, let's have this conversation. Hey, I don't want to be mad anymore. Let's talk. So we start to keep score.
Right.
And I understood so much when Paul says love keeps no score of wrongdoing.
Keep no record of wrongs.
That's what he's talking about.
Wow.
Because it's easy for me to sit there and keep tally of the 100 times that I came to you and the one time you came to me. But it is so much harder and so much more Christian-like for me to be able to say, I'm in this relationship for the long haul. So if we are in this relationship together and we have decided we're going to be in this together, maybe what I define as together is not what you define as together. Maybe the sacrifices that I'm willing to make to stay together with you are not sacrifices that you're going to make because it's just not in your nature because you're selfish. But we've chosen to be together. So that means that good or bad, right? And for rich or for poor, when you make these vows, I'm not talking to you if you're in a relationship. I'm talking to you if you're married. Because you can always leave a relationship. But if you are in a marriage and you are choosing to work it out with this person, then that forgiveness, that's real. Because you have to be able to have a new conversation, not founded on your previous unresolved conversations. Because you'll never fight fair if you're constantly bringing up, well, in 1926.
Right. And you'll never be able to have one conversation. You'll always be talking about different things when that happens. So yeah, 100%. Well, just going back to the always and never, right? Whenever you use that language, that immediately it is an attack on a person's character. There's nobody who's always anything or never something else. Like there's always nuance. And what ends up happening is that whatever it is that you actually want to talk about, if they're even just a little defensive, they're going to stick on to this always and never label that you just put on them. So those are words you definitely want to avoid at all costs.
And Michelle just spoke a word and, talking about humility and issues. And I feel like for me, one of the biggest things in learning how to fight fair is my healing, because let me tell you, if you fight with an unhealed person, God help you, because when I used to fight, right, you have two unhealed people, right, dealing with their own issues and literally doing everything they can to hurt the other person. And because you know what hurts them the most, you use it every single time, right? And so for me, it was always like anything about, my complexion, about how I looked, how, that triggered me to the point of no return. And I felt like I was just going to kill the person. The other thing is value. I had no value of self. And so a lot of my value came in what I was doing for that person. Right. And it was almost like, if I couldn't do something for that person, I had no use in the relationship. I devalued myself. And then it almost kind of turned a corner where when I stopped doing, because the Knicks are up, when I stopped doing, they started to make me feel bad for not doing, right? Which created a whole nother issue. And so just being healed and being humbled is just so important in fighting fair. But, the Knicks are up.
The Knicks are up.
They are.
Wow.
That is
we come to that lead, though. We come to that lead.
The Knicks are up. The Knicks are up. I lost my point. I was going to say something else, and I just
That's quite ugly.
Because the Knicks are up.
I know. I saw the Knicks up, but I lost my train of thought. Sorry.
Oh! Here it is. Mota pointed out that sometimes when a person is when you need to cool down and you walk away and you walk out.
Yeah.
It can trigger your partner if they've suffered abandonment. That can happen with so many other scenarios as well, which is why it's so important to have a plan around your fighting. Like conflict is inevitable. You're going to fight. You're going to get into arguments. You're going to have disagreements. You're going to have misunderstandings. But so many times we have no plan for how do we manage conflict together, right? When you go to a school for the first time, they always have a fire drill. You join a company, there are drills so that just in case something happens, there's a plan, people are prepared. But we don't talk about how we talk. One of the things that Vince Vaughn did in the very beginning of the fight was when he said, fine, he'll wash dishes, he threw the remote control over to the side. And I don't know, like, I know my culture, you do something like that, it is over. Like, but then other people do it in other ways, right? For some people, it's eye rolling. For some people, it's it's the neck. For other people, it's
grabbing things in the air that's not there. Nothing's there, sweetheart.
Nothing's there. But for others, it's a demeaning tone, or it's belittling, or it's name calling. Like all of those things, they're just pouring accelerant onto the conflict. And if we can remember that the goal of conflict is not to get out of it or to end it, but it's to actually discover what is happening with my loved one that I don't understand. What hurt me? Can I understand that? So I think having conversations about how we have conversations is a critical part of fighting. Like it's important after the fight to go back and let's run the tape. Okay, how did this go? All right, when you said this, what did you mean? What were you trying to communicate? What were you trying to accomplish? Or that doesn't work for me. Or when you walk out, this is how I interpret it. And I want y'all to notice, I'm not saying when you walk out, this is what you're trying to do. No, I'm not putting motive on your actions. I'm taking ownership and I'm saying, this is what I'm experiencing. There's a difference between being, between telling a truth and being honest. And a lot of people tell a truth, but they're not honest.
Yeah.
The difference between truth and honesty is that truth is based on facts. Honesty is tying vulnerability and intent and emotions to what happened. So I can be truthful in saying when you walked out, that sucked. But if I'm being honest, I'll say when you walked out, it reminded me of how so-and-so was never there for me and they left me. And those are two very different conversations.
Yeah, but we also need the maturity of being able to know.
I was going to say. You're
not going to come to that conclusion without therapy, without some level of help. Because for me, there were a lot of times I found myself not being able to express how I really felt, because to be honest with you, I didn't even know why I felt that way, why I responded that way. Something came so out of character. I actually had to check myself in a lot of situations. I'm shaking, and I'm like, "This isn't me." And you get worked up to a point where you begin to start to become somebody that you don't recognize, and so it takes a lot for you. It takes a lot for you to be able to know enough about yourself to know what your circumstances are, what your triggers are, eventually what you're trying to convey. That comes a lot with maturity, comes a lot with you getting to know yourself in retrospect to how you're dealing with other people. It comes with therapy and allowing other people to tell you about yourself. It has to do a lot with what Mota said about the 4 different aspects. I forgot what it is, but it was so good about
last week.
Right. Remember about
how you
how people see you, et cetera. That's
Mota ain't helping nobody out. She's not coming through she's not doing
she gonna figure it out.
Right.
She buying tickets. That's what she's doing.
She already got the tickets. You leave her alone. Listen.
Do I need to drive to your house today, Duddley? Because I know the address. I will pull up with a rose.
Are you gonna fight fair though? But are you gonna fight fair?
See?
But the big thing, let me ask this question, right? Because when you get to the point of that level of maturity and you're able to articulate yourself in that way, but the person you're articulating yourself to is not able to receive it, how do you then proceed? How do you know what happens in that scenario?
That's such a good question. And that's why for me, like finding somebody who will grow with you is so critical. Because one of the saddest things is to have to end a relationship because they won't grow with you. They're not bad.
You've been saying that the last couple of episodes.
Oh man, son, it's tough. It's tough. But anyway, I think that's where running the tape, going back and let's talk about how we talk. Let's talk about how we fight. Let's talk about the tools that we use, whether we're name calling or we are stonewalling or we're using a certain kind of tone. Like, man, I remember with my wife, she used to be like, don't yell at me. And I'm like, I've never raised my voice to you. So like, we had to have conversation. Like, what are you talking about? And she would be like, you don't raise your voice, but there's a tone. There's a tone you have when you're upset. And what I hear yelling. And I'm like, bet. So now what I had to learn to do was like, we're in the middle of a disagreement. And it's like, okay, I would ask for a tone check. Like, hey, how's it going? And she's like, you're good. And I'm like, okay, cool. Because I had to also realize like, I can't hear myself. Like, I think I'm good. I think I'm all clear, but I can't hear myself. So I think being able to have conversations, not about just the issue, but all right, let's continue this conversation by talking about how we manage the issue.
You also have to have a love for people too, because your love for your wife called you that when she responded or she said that to you, you were able to say, okay. And you cared enough about how she felt about what you were saying about her to say, okay, let me check. Because there are some people who might hear that and say, well, I'm not yelling at you. So that's your issue.
Right. And so I had to care more about how she was receiving things than just how I thought I was coming off.
And that's communication, folks.
That's communication.
Coming from a communication director, communication is not about what is said. It's about how it's received. If it's not received in a certain way, you're not communicating effectively.
That's it.
That's true.
Yeah. I think a big question people should ask themselves, if you're focused on winning the fight, is winning working? Is it working for your relationships?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now there are ways that fighting fair or fighting unfair in this particular context ranges outside of just romantic relationships.
This is true. Okay, so let me do this real quick. So Gottman Institute has 4 horsemen that if you see this in your method of fighting, it is a sign of things not going well. Like your relationship is not, it doesn't have a high chance of succeeding or lasting, right?
Say the reference again. Say the reference again.
The Gottman Institute, GOTTMANS, I believe. So if there's contempt, this is where you see the disrespect. This is where you see the rudeness, the attitude, the just kind of dismissive tone. If you see that, then that is, it also shows up as sarcasm, as ridicule, as calling names, eye rolling, poor body language, because you don't have to be talking to be communicating, right? Your eyes turned away, you're not giving full attention, body language, it says a whole lot. So if there's contempt, that is a poor indicator of a fighting style. It's something that you want to get out of your relationship if you're going to communicate and fight fair. If there's criticism, right? So criticism is not the same as sharing a complaint or sharing a request. Criticism, as like Duddley said, is attacking the character. You think you're all of that. It's attacking the character of the person. And one of the things that's so important to know about criticism is that there's always a request underneath the criticism. But a lot of times people become experts in sharing their criticism, but not sharing the request. So they critique and they critique and they critique, but they never ask for what they actually want, right? You never wash the dishes. Well, you can just make the request. Can you please wash the dishes? Right. It's a very different conversation than attacking the character, which tends to elicit defensiveness. Another horseman is defensiveness. It is it is the unwillingness to receive critique, to receive feedback of somebody else's response. It's trying to deflect the conversation. It's pointing to all of the things I did right. What about that? And it's not staying on topic. Or it's finding a way to blame the other person and like, well, you did this and you did that. instead of addressing the issue that the person has.
Right.
And then there's stonewalling. So in the video, we saw contempt, criticism, defensiveness. For the rest of the movie, the most of what we see is stonewalling. And stonewalling is the infamous silent treatment. It is the not engaging with the person. It is being acutely aware of their presence, but not engaging with them and just acting like they don't exist. And those 4 things are very destructive to relationships, not only in romantic relationships, but also in relationships outside of that. So Dudley, you were pivoting us.
Yeah, no, I was just saying, yeah. So this conversation allows me to realize how much fighting and infighting and the ways to fight fair can happen within relationships, in romantic relationships, and outside of that, even with platonic relationships. I found that a lot of ways I've learned about dealing with people was in my social network. It was in my social community. I learned a lot about what to do and what not to do. Let me give you a basic function that hopefully will be a catalyst to this. So I grew up in a Haitian community, right? Haitian church, and my Haitian community, my Haitian church, one of the few rules, I can't even say that, one of the many rules that you have socially is that if you are coming into a place and you are the person coming in, you need to greet everyone in the room.
Oh, yeah.
That's number one.
That's it.
Number 2, if the person is older than you, you have to, and it obviously is a person of the opposite sex, you have to give them a kiss on the cheek.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If you did not do that, your life is over. They're going to tell your parents, and you are a vagabond.
That's it. That's it.
Okay. Literally the translation of the word. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so in my dealings with this, not knowing that there was any other style of reference to that way of greeting, I eventually became a pastor. And when I became a pastor, I began to start to minister at a church that was not Haitian. It was predominantly Jamaican.
Yo.
And as a person who, in my mind, this is what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
I went to every lady in the church.
Listen.
And I kissed them on the cheek.
Same.
And they looked at me like, what are you doing?
My members loved it. Your members didn't love it?
No. I got a call. My senior pastor, I was associate. My senior pastor called me to the office and said, Pastor, a little bit of complaints.
Wow.
That you are, kissing some of the ladies.
Mercy.
Wow. And I'm saying, no. So I went up the next Sabbath, and I explained everything, and the whole church is dying laughing. And now they got it. It is to say.
So you're the reason they had a sexual harassment training.
Have mercy. This is what vulnerability.
No, Jeremiah.
So
what is happening tonight?
I say this to say that there are a lot of dealings. There are a lot of ways that you deal with your social network.
Yeah.
That frames and shapes how you interact. And so I use that example to say that because I've learned so much growing up in my Haitian, culture, I've also seen the way in which my Haitian culture interacts when it comes to conflict.
100%. By the way, North Bronx never had a sexual harassment training. I don't know anything about that.
I love North Bronx. North Bronx loves me.
Okay, all right.
I go there anytime. I'm good. We good.
We good.
But it says a lot of how you see and perceive fighting, and how you've grown up seeing fighting. That does a lot in allowing you to realize what weapons to use, what weapons not use, etc. And I'll tell you, coming from a Haitian background, I'm not saying anybody else is better or worse. I'm just saying for us, man, sometimes our Haitian people, our pride makes us evil.
Mercy, Lord.
evil.
Say that again. Say it again.
No. Don't say it again. Don't say it again. Don't say it again. Why are you giving them ammo, bro? What are you doing?
Everybody heard.
Because Edsel here trying to talk about Hispanic women being crazy.
Wow.
Let's talk about the evilness of Asian women. Come on,
wow.
You see what you did? You see what you did?
I'm not lying.
Yo.
Okay. So let me say this, right? I feel like when we talk about church and all that, I feel like my family's Jamaican. I grew up in a Caribbean church. I feel like we were taught not to fight, right? And so now when you try to fight, even if you feel like you're fighting fair, you're treated as if what you're doing is wrong because we were taught not to fight at all. Keep quiet, listen and obey your elders, don't rock the boat. Just be content with what is. And so when you grow up and you see something that's like, you know what, this is not quite right, and I want to take a stand against it, and I want to fight against it, it's like you're wrong. Even if you've done nothing wrong per se, you're just wrong because you shouldn't be fighting in the first place. You should just be quiet.
That's so critical. Because there are some parents who so overcorrect from the drama that they grew up with or the drama that they saw.
Yeah.
That they break the will of their children.
Yeah.
So that their children don't know how to fight for themselves or stand up for themselves when they are in dangerous or compromising situations. And that is, and there are people who prey on people like that.
Oh, absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely.
See, for me, that my context is completely different. My community has allowed you to embrace your petty, right? So
my community, Celtics. What community are you talking about?
No.
I want to understand.
Not the 17-time champions. No, not them. I'm saying. Anyway, let's focus on the podcast. So I found that my community has gotten comfortable in being able to fight you and still feel good about being a Christian. They'll find ways to undermine you and still feel as if they're holding on to their integrity. And so their style of fighting isn't as abrasive until it gets to a point where it gets too crazy. But most of all, it's really about talking about how a person dresses. When I don't like a family, I don't like a person, I don't like an individual, I begin to start to break down their worth, their self-worth. Allowing everyone to hear, anyone who might want to accept this gossip as a way to do that. And so the style of fighting isn't necessarily towards you, but it's damaging you by damaging your reputation around you. I've seen many young people leave the church, completely get destroyed because, this family wasn't considered to be, yada, yada, yada. And the last thing I'll say is there are many triggers to that. I found that fighting comes, or you learn this is a reason to fight when people challenge you and your reputation. I found that there are many petty reasons why people come into fights. I found growing up in church, when a family didn't like another family for the sole reason that family looked like they're making it and your family isn't, they will destroy you.
Mercy.
If their child is up in the front singing and my child is sitting in the pew, I'm going to destroy them. You know what I'm saying? Years go by later, that child is an elder in the church. My child is no longer going to church. And these narratives foster a reason to fight. And so I found a lot of I found a lot of causalities, and I found a lot of strategies of how to fight, be a fighter, but still feel as if you are, oh no, everything's fine. Right. No, I'm a Christian. Right. No, everything's okay. Right. And so and I've realized within this, it has allowed me to try my best not to fight.
Right. Right. And here's the thing, that a lot of people are drawn to what's familiar, even when it's dysfunctional. And it makes me wonder how many people join churches because those churches feel like home.
Oh, mercy.
And what that really means is that the style of conflict in this church is what I'm used to.
What they're used to,
Yeah.
So it just feels familiar, and it feels right, even though it's dysfunctional.
Yeah. Wow.
That was good. And so, but hold on. So let me press closer to this. So what you're suggesting is that a person identifies with a social group, church, etc., because it plays by the same rules as their home.
Sometimes, or even they choose a relationship because it feels familiar. I've seen this before. I know how this works, even though it doesn't work. It's familiar.
Yeah.
That's why people end up dating the same person over and over. Or a version of a parent.
Right.
Yep.
And they're like, how did I end up here? Because it allows them to play out the role of the other parent that was in the relationship, or the other relationship that they saw growing up.
All right. So then how do we fight fear? Or is that realistic?
It is.
I think it is.
Yeah.
I think
it is. You have to approach disagreements with a level of understanding that the other person is not my enemy.
That's it.
Like the issue is, if I believe that you are against me, it's already a losing fight, because I'm already going to be the victim in my story. So everything that you do is personal. It's about me. It's against me. And when you go from that perspective, it is impossible to have an honest fight, because literally a fight is a disagreement. It's something that we are not seeing eye to eye on.
Yeah.
And there are multiple ways to skin a cat, right? So if I want you to do the dishes after I cook, you could be like, I don't like doing dishes, Michelle, but I like washing clothes, so I'll wash and fold, and you cook and clean. Like, there's always compromises that are available, and we may not always like the compromise. We may not always agree that the compromise is fair, but if I understand that you and I are team us, there shouldn't even be there shouldn't be a point where I'm questioning how low in the belt do I have to hit you in order for you to feel what I feel.
100%.
If I don't feel like we're partners, how can I talk to you? How can we get through a problem?
That's it.
The minute that you sever that relationship and you look at somebody like they're against me, you're done. There's nothing left to fight for.
Which means you have to be secure enough to be willing to be wrong. You have to be secure enough to hear their perspective, even if that's not what you meant to do. That wasn't your intent, to hear their experience without defending. Like, you gotta be secure.
You have to be secure enough. Wait, Edsel, let me add to that. You have to be secure enough to be right and allow yourself to lose. Because you want to keep that relationship. Like that is how entrenched in your person you should be. That is the level of sacrifice that relationship calls for.
You've got to be secure enough to apologize even when you did nothing wrong.
No!
But you're saying, I'm sorry for how the person felt.
Absolutely.
I'm sorry you felt that way. I'm sorry you experienced that. I'm sorry you went through that. That wasn't I didn't do anything wrong, but I can give you a sorry because I know that's what you mean.
This podcast, I'm gonna give podcast for everybody.
I'm gonna give it to you. I'm gonna give you the sorry, and I'm gonna mean it. Because that's empathy, Duddley. That's how you define empathy.
You're absolutely correct. But I'm not saying.
I ain't eating on nobody's paper plates. Go ahead.
I'm not saying but because I disagree.
I'm
saying but because yet it is difficult.
What's that?
Let's go back to
and
go back to that. Go back
there is it's very difficult to do that humility with a person who will then use that against you.
But that's
what we talked about. Go ahead. Go
Right.
ahead.
I know.
Go ahead.
So I just want to harp on the fact of I want to choose a person. I want to see a person in conflict that can also exude that same humility, because Lord only knows you partner yourself with a person who you're doing your best to, even if you're right, everything you said, even if I'm right, I'm going to humble myself and, apologize, not necessarily because I did something right, but, or I did something wrong, but because of how you feel. And that person comes around and says, yep, well, you better have apologized.
Ooh, Lord.
And if they don't.
But
no, I mean, then it is what it is. But I'm just saying,
you have to come from
hard.
a place of being healed, right? And one of the things that I learned about fighting fear is that it's about me fighting fear. It's not about the other person fighting fear. And when you get to the point when you realize, like, you know what, I'm fighting fear, one of two things are going to happen. That other person is going to realize that they have to fight fear, or they're going to leave you alone.
That's it.
It's one or the other.
My therapist used to say, when you raise a bar, if you're both hanging onto a bar, right? And usually the bar is where you're standing. So usually the bar will be leveled, right, between two people. Once someone raises the bar, the other person is now going to be forced to either go up or let go.
Wow. That's right.
Because you're going to be hanging and it's not going to be comfortable for you.
That's right.
And at the end of the day, you will either have to make the choice of leveling up, and leveling up is not leveling to that person's level.
Exactly.
It's simply growing yourself as an individual.
Exactly.
Or let go and find somebody who's more on your level. Because once you have two unequally yoked individuals, regardless of religion and denominational preferences, regardless of cultural preferences. Okay, we're not going there tonight. Once you have unequally yoked individuals and the bar is now uneven, one of you has to give. And it's not going to be the person that rose the bar.
Right.
Because once you raise that bar, you ain't going back down. There is a beauty to growth, which is the ability to see the same issue and not respond the same way. That is true growth.
Right.
True growth is dealing with the same type of people you're used to dealing with, but not responding to them in the same way. So even in a relationship, Duddley, to answer your question, if I'm with someone who constantly ridicules my ability to try to grow, if I'm in a relationship with someone that every time I try to lift the bar, they're trying to pull it back down.
That's right.
And at some point, I have to make a decision to either excuse myself out of that relationship, to go to therapy with that individual and try to get someone else to help them see, and me to see where we are failing each other, or if I'm communicating this to this individual and they are not responding and they are not willing to acknowledge, they're not willing to admit their faults, what are you doing in that relationship? Einstein defines insanity as doing the same thing and expecting different results. And a lot of us are relationally insane.
It's true. It's true. Here's the word of God for the saints of God. You cannot manage conflict until you manage yourself.
That's right.
A lot of us don't know how to manage ourselves, so we don't know how to manage conflict.
Yep.
The Bible says, for the love of Christ constrains us, controls us, compels us. Until we learn to be submitted to him, until we learn some self-control, until we learn to be managed by him and we learn to manage ourselves, we will never be effective in managing conflict.
That's right.
Drop mic.
That's the word.
Boom. It's the word of God for the saints of God. Let's go.
So I think with all of this in this conversation of fighting, how to fight, how to use fighting, how to deal without fighting, there is a constant reminder of knowing enough about who you are, practicing a certain level of empathy, being able to compartmentalize your issue from your problem by speaking on the same side of the table. And in a lot of things, as the four horsemen, as was mentioned before, are easy for us to lean towards.
Because it's what we saw.
Because it's what we saw, is because of our social dynamic, etc. That we have an ability to rise from that. That there is an ability to fight fair. And that fighting and conflict is necessary.
Yeah.
You don't avoid conflict.
Yeah.
Conflict is healthy
Mhm.
in the building up of not only yourself, but the relationships that you're in. That's it.
That's it, y'all.
That's it. Well, everybody, I think it's a good landing point for tonight.
The Knicks are up.
Who? Listen, God teaches us not to put our energy in trivial things like sports.
Mercy.
Cut this cast right now. Cut it. Just cut it. You're about to damage everything that we just spent an hour and a half building, Duddley. Cut it. I'm gonna talk to you. Cut it. Cut it. Cut it.
All right.
Cut it.
This is us signing off. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in.
Good night.
Next time on the Confessions podcast.
We're
out, guys.
No.
I'm not. Let's go south.
Wow. You see this?
Wow.
Cool. You better root for them. There's 46 seconds left. 46 seconds left. By 15.
Win the championship, though.
Yep, by 15.
The Boston Knicks.
Oh my gosh.
Oh man. Oh, I love it.